Hi, my name is Jennifer, and I'm the dietitian and health coach from HealthTeam Advantage. Today, we're going to be making a couple really simple dishes. The prep time is nothing, and the ingredients overlap so that it's simple. Once you take out everything, you just use it and you're done with it. Once you get the items in the oven, we're going to be making a simple, easy pork tenderloin that is baked in the oven, and we're going to be making also some roasted Parmesan green beans. These are great sources of a lean protein as well as some fiber and nutrition in our vegetables. Always looking for extra ways to get extra color and vegetables into our diet. You can make this for something like Easter. It's a nice alternative to something like the heavy salt laden ham that we tend to make, or you could just make it in addition so that you know that if you're trying to be healthier, that you have something nice available. The pork tenderloin is a really lean cut of pork and simple, easy to make. I cut off to prepare it. This is a little under a pound and a half. The recipe calls for 2 pork tenderloins, so I went for one that was a little bit bigger. I cut off some of the visible chunks of fat just to get those out of there, to make it nice and simple and healthier. And the green beans are about 12 ounces of French cut green beans that I just rinsed off and washed. Okay. Now, the ingredients that we'll be using for the pork is brown sugar. This is all going to be part of the dry rub. Brown sugar, Italian seasoning, paprika, black pepper, garlic, salt. Okay, that nice and simple. For the green beans, we'll be using black pepper, garlic, salt, and at the end, we'll be finishing it off with some Parmesan. Now, what you can do is preheat your oven. I would cook your pork first. That's going to be baked at 400 degrees. And the Parmesan green beans are going to be baked at 425. So you can cook your pork first. Then once you take that out of the oven and to let it rest, you can put your green beans in. And by the time those are all ready, you can slice up your pork. That way the juices don't run out on you. So to make my rub for the pork, I simply put 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning, a teaspoon of paprika, a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, a teaspoon of garlic. It calls for 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. And salt is an area where I feel that I have control over when I'm doing it in a recipe. And so ahead of time when I'm cooking the meal, I tend to use personally a little bit less salt and let people season it a little bit more at the table if they prefer. But the recipe does call for 3/4 of a tablespoon or teaspoon, of salt. So what I'm going to do first is 13 by 9-inch pan. I have some olive oil spray. So I'm going to do that. Okay. And that rub that I talked about with those ingredients, I went ahead and pre-did. Now, I'm going to gauge that rub on the pork because I bought a larger one. I may use all of it. I may not because it calls for 2 pork tenderloin originally. Okay. So I'm going to get these out of the way. All right. So when I'm handling meat, I went ahead and washed my hands, but I like to use gloves. I'm one of those people. Worked in food service industry for a long time, so it's just habit for me. Okay, so once I have preheated my oven, I have my pork here that has rested out for just a teeny bit. You don't want to leave it out of the fridge for too long, but I kind of let it sit to dry a little bit. Okay, so, and again, here is my rub that I have gone ahead and made. Okay, I'm going to grab out a spoon. Okay, so I'm going to take that and put it in here. Now, what I should have done first is, and sometimes I'm not fully prepared. So I'll take off my gloves because I don't want to cross-contaminate. I am going to take 2 tablespoons of the olive oil, and I am going to drizzle that. I'm going to start with 1 actually for my recipe because I only have 1 pork tenderloin. Okay. I'm going to drizzle that over. I think that 1 tablespoon for this scenario is going to be enough. Okay. So back on with the gloves for my meat. And then, so I've just drizzled it over. And what I'm going to do, because what we're going to do after is massage it in. So I'm going to take here some of the rub, sprinkle it over the top. But eventually you're going to kind of want to coat all sides. So I do have a feeling that I am going to use, because this is bigger, I am going to use all of the rub. Okay, so I'm kind of rubbing it around on there, massaging it into the meat. And now it doesn't matter if I touch my bowl because I'm going to use all of the rub on the pork. Okay, I'm going to try to get that around, smushed in some. Now, the goal for pork, when you cook it, if you have a thermometer, if you want to test it after, is 145 degrees internally. So you can see here, I have really smushed it in, made it look nice and moist all the way around. Now, that's nice and prepped. All done. Now we're just going to wait for my oven to warm up so that we can go ahead and put that in. And we are going to cook that for approximately 25 to 35 minutes. I'm going to start with mine at 25 minutes because it's only 1 pork loin. And I'm going to check it, and I'll take it out and check the temperature to see if that's enough time. Some ovens come equipped with a thermometer inside, and you can cook it based on that thermometer gauge, which would be nice. In terms of our green beans, I've got some tongs here. So what I'm going to start by doing, I've lined a baking sheet with parchment paper. Okay. I'm going to lay these all out on here. Now, another for the oil. We are going to take actually 2 teaspoons of olive oil. So this is a tablespoon. So I'm going to do just slightly less because there's 3 teaspoons in a tablespoon. So 2 teaspoons of olive oil is going to get drizzled nicely over these green beans, nice and slow, so that because we're going to eventually just mix it all in. Now I've gone ahead here for the green beans, and I have mixed together a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic seasoning, garlic powder, and some little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. It says salt and pepper to taste. So again, I start pretty mild on the salt. I like pepper, so I added a little bit more pepper, probably about a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, but might not even need all of this. We'll see. Let me get that out of the way. Okay, if you hold it up high and just mix it all around, you'll sprinkle it nice and evenly all throughout. All right, I'm going to leave just a little bit left in there. Now what I'm going to do, I did mine on parchment paper. I'm going to spread it around. I did mine on parchment paper because you can use foil. That's fine. If I use foil, I like to spray it. Parchment paper, I don't have to spray, so I tend to like to use that. Everything comes off nice and easy. So I'm just going to try to incorporate all that oil and that seasoning in here. Try to check that everything is coated with the olive oil. Okay, now I'm just going to try to get it flat on the pan so it's all kind of evenly placed, as much of a single layer as I possibly can. Now you can use your hands and do this, that's fine. And it might get a little bit nicer on the pan for you. All right, done with that. I am going to start by popping in the pork at 400 degrees for 25 minutes. I'm going to check the temperature. When I'm done with that, I will pop in the green beans. The green beans cook at 425. So once that pork is done, you can pop the green beans in after you've heated the oven up a little bit more. And then what you're going to do is, after about 10 minutes of baking them, you want to check on them probably because everybody's oven's a little bit different. The recipe says 10 minutes, take them out, kind of move them around a little bit so they don't get too charred in any particular area. And some people like their vegetables softer, some like them a little more al dente, but then it says cook for another 5 minutes at that temperature, and then we're going to remove them, and then I'll come back to you and finish it up. All right, here we go. Finished product. I cooked the pork tenderloin at 400 for about 30 minutes. Took it out, let it rest for about 5 minutes, sliced it up. Then the green beans I took out of the oven after I let the pork rest, and I had cooked those for about 10-15 minutes. At least for my preference, 15 minutes was the max. I cooked it for a little bit less, plated it up, sprinkled on a little bit of Parmesan cheese. So here you go. We've got the pork tenderloin. You can see on top the nice crust and the seasoning rub. Slice that up, and I even got some juices flowing to the bottom. But I finished off the green beans with a little bit of that Parmesan cheese. So again, high protein, low fat, high fiber, vitamins, minerals, and it can be used for a nice holiday, a nice Sunday dinner, a weeknight dinner if you're short on time. Again, the prep time was so simple. Thank you very much for joining me, and enjoy.